of law. That ends on my watch, and anybody who's in this country illegally will be returned to their country of origin. That's what it means to protect our own homeland. My foreign policy is clear. I'll keep us out of World War III. I'll declare economic independence from communist China, from our pharmaceuticals to our own military that depends on a supply chain from China. And then the most radical of all, we will use our own national defense spending to actually defend our own homeland in the United States, where we're more vulnerable than we have ever been. If that can happen on October 7th in Israel, that can happen right here in the United States of America, and I'm here to make sure it does not happen on my watch. We will secure our own homeland. That's not too much to ask. We, the people, create a government that's accountable to us, and that government and its leaders owe an obligation exclusively to the citizens of this country, not another one. These aren't black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even really Democrat ideas or Republican ideas, not really. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. And I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I'm running for president to revive them. It's on the back of our coins. You can see it etched into every one of them. E pluribus unum. It means from many, one. That's what we've lost in this country. My generation especially. I'm 38 years old. We have been taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me, all of us, starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. And you see, that's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Speaking the truth, not just to the Democrats on the other side, but to our own side in this party when necessary. There's a reason why I'm the only candidate in this race who can tell you certain things. That I will strip pharmaceutical companies of the special liability exemption that vaccine manufacturers enjoy. That's crony capitalism, and we deserve justice in this country. That's the right thing to do. It's not capitalism, that's crony capitalism. The only person who can tell you I'm against the CO2 pipeline making its way across the other half of this state, using eminent domain to seize the land of farmers who don't want that crap in their backyard. That it's based on a climate change agenda that absolutely is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. To tell you that Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman of the RNC, needs to step aside after 5 failed years of leadership because we need accountability in our own party before we can ever bring it to government. To tell you, this is ahead of the 3rd anniversary of what happened on January 6th, that I will pardon every peaceful January 6th protester on my first day in office, because that's the right thing to do for this country, to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. Ask yourself why I'm the only candidate who can tell you these things. It's because our politics is corrupt, it's broken. Anymore, every politician is dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. And in my case, that biggest donor is me. I don't report to them. I report to you, the citizens of this nation, not another one, but this nation. I'd rather speak the truth and lose this election than to win by playing some fake game of political snakes and ladders. But look, my bet is that's the winning strategy. That's not my decision, that's your decision. So you all have a choice to make. In about 10 days at the Iowa caucus, every one of your votes there counts as the equivalent of 1 million people. And I'm asking you here today, the reason I'm here is to ask you for your help. To take 30 minutes of your time to do the right thing for our country on January 15th. And a little bit more than that, to tell 10 people, in this community, what we're talking about today, and to bring them out too. And if you all do your part, then I promise you, my wife Apurva and I and our family, we will do ours to make sure, not in some fake politician way, but in a true way, to make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. Thank you guys for coming out today. God bless you and your families. And may God bless our United States of America as we open this up to give me the hard ones, as I've asked for. So, sir, you want to get the first one?
Of course, the vast majority of people in the U.S. military are between the ages of 18 and 25.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, for example, of a kid right now who's doing gate guard in freezing Fairbanks, Alaska, of another kid who's deep down in an aircraft carrier, keeping that ship running, of another kid who wanted to be a Navy SEAL his whole life, and now he's in Coronado, California, giving it a try. And I wonder if you'd just take a minute just to talk to those young people who are out there on watch all around the world, out on the high seas, who are protecting us, all these kids who are out there protecting us. I wonder if you'd take a minute to talk to them.
First, I want to thank your family. That comes as a family sacrifice, and thank this man and for raising young sons who care enough about this country to put their lives and their bodies on the line. What I will say is this: as your commander-in-chief, here's the number one way I'm going to respect our troops and respect our veterans. God forbid we ever put you in harm's way. It will be to protect the citizens of this country, not another one. $7 trillion of our national debt and thousands of our sons and daughters went to go die in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. For God's sake, the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later, and Iraq is a more broken country than when we first showed up. I refuse to make those same mistakes again. And the way we stand for our troops is to make sure that our troops and their hard work and the effort and the sacrifices they make actually do make for safer and better lives for the citizens of the United States of America in this country. That's my top job to our veterans and to the people who serve in this country in our active duty military, to make sure that's how we advance our interests. Now, very practically, I think we also need to do a better job of taking care of our veterans. I appreciate your hats, sir, veterans. You know, our Veterans for Vivek group, we've stood for that because I'm the only presidential candidate that's offered comprehensive veterans policy. Basic things we can do. 6-week decompression buffers. If you come from a combat role before you come back to civilian life, paid 6-week decompression buffers. That brings down the rate of PTSD by 80%. We're not doing it today. Privacy restrictions for veterans who are afraid to report their PTSD because they'd otherwise be tagged with the red flag law. That's unconscionable. Every veteran should have those privacy restrictions. Medical choice for veterans, many of whom, close to 40 per day, are committing suicide in the United States of America. A country that doesn't stand for its veterans is not really a country. Many of them turn into fentanyl and a path to suicide. That ends with medical choice for Schedule I substances to be able to get them as medical care through the VA. Not having to drive 150 miles to the nearest VA center, but to be able to get community-based medical care near where you are. Basic changes we need to make. I've been a CEO. You know who sets the pay of a CEO in a big company? It's the shareholders. Well, I'm going to restructure the VA so that the veterans are treated as the shareholders of the VA. They set the pay of who gets the pay raise and who doesn't at the very top. And one thing I've said, and this is an easy one I'll be able to deliver, and it's the right thing to do, is nobody who is active duty military or a veteran collecting veterans benefits or compensation should have their actual military compensation subject to federal taxation. That will end on my watch as well. And so that's what it means to actually stand for our veterans, not with our words, but with our actions. And to the people who we're talking about, including your sons, that's what I mean when I say we stand with our troops. Thank you very much, sir, and I appreciate your family. Thank you. Thank you. Young man. Right there, yep.
How's it going?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. So I've seen you. I think you're the only Republican candidate I've seen do like CNN, Pod Save America. I think I've seen you do Breakfast Club as well. I'm just wondering, A, why you think it's important to go on media channels that are maybe unfriendly to the cause, and B,
I think it's very important, actually.
And B, what message you think you have that could appeal to maybe more left-leaning people who listen to those channels, who
Sure.
are the core audience there.
Yeah, and I'm not only doing that with the media, but even where we travel. I mean, I've gone to the south side of Chicago. I've gone to the inner city of Kensington in Pennsylvania. And I think it's important because a lot of the national division narrative that we have right now, it's actually artificial. It's made up by the media and social media. Actually, most people in this country agree on the basic rules of the road. I was in a room like this one on the south side of Chicago. I can tell you, I haven't been in a room where I've had more agreement on my policy to militarize our southern border than that room. They're converting their local high school into an encampment for illegal migrants at $7,000 per migrant per month. A room full like this, what did they say? It's 95% black, 150% Democrat, was what I was told walking in there. They agree with me every bit as much as everybody in this room and then some, because it's hitting them in their own community. They're asking, what the heck about me? If this is how we're treating illegals like kings, why are we sitting here like paupers against sending $200 billion to Ukraine? I think it was really important for me at the CNN town hall that we did in Iowa, which they shamefully cut off 5 minutes early before having a conniption about me speaking hard truths about what really happened on January 6th. I think it's important for people. And in some ways, I come from a place where, 3 years ago, I was the CEO of a biotech company. I was anti-woke. I was writing my first book, Woke Inc., and I consider myself a solid conservative. But if you had told me that January 6th was the product of government entrapment and that there was an FBI instigation component to it, I would have said that's crazy talk. That's fringe conspiracy theory talk. And yet, now we know it's not. And so in some ways, because I wasn't deep in this stuff. I'm a biotech CEO consuming the media as it's served up to me. I know to be skeptical, but only to a certain degree. So I think it's doubly important that we speak the truth, not just to our own echo chambers, but to all Americans. And I think that's our opportunity to unite this country. I don't sit here bashing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris largely because there's no point. He's not really the president, really, at the end of the day. He's a puppet for the managerial class. It's really the deep state that's the enemy here. And so when you go straight to the people, when you actually have open debate in this country, if a protester walks in here, it's happened from time to time, it's happened here in Iowa. I'll give them the mic as long as they sit down and listen to what everybody else has to say in response. That's how we get this country back. And my commitment to much of this country, even young people, how old are you if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 26.
You're 26. To your generation, when we go to college campuses, I say the same thing is, here's my deal with you. You can try on what I say like a set of clothes. Try it on. If it doesn't fit, we offer you a full refund. You can put it back on the rack, okay? But I think we're bringing people along where my view is, you don't have to agree with 100% of what I say to support me. All you have to know is I'm telling you what I believe 100% of the time. That's the best we can expect from our politicians. And I do it also because this election cannot be a 50.1 election. We're skating on thin ice as a country right now. If this is another election where MSNBC is trotting out the winner 6 days after the voting night, I don't think we have a country left, actually. And I think that I'll tell you a little bit about what I think is going on between now and then. I think our side is being led to walk into a trap that we need to be very careful of. This has to be a moral mandate. What Reagan delivered in 1980, that's what this needs to be in 2024. And the difference between 50.1 and a landslide is reaching a lot of those independents and libertarians and young Americans, including on college campuses. And so if you make me your nominee, and that's what I'm asking you to do on January 15th, my obligation back to you is to deliver you a landslide, a moral mandate in this election like we have not seen since Reagan's first election in 1980 and his second one in 1984. That's my responsibility to you, and that's why I do it. It's not for fun or for entertainment. Is the treatment unfair? Absolutely it is. Many Republicans say they won't do it because of that unfair treatment. We can't hide in our echo chambers. I'm running to lead the United States of America. And as I said in the beginning, as I opened this up for questions, Esther said the same thing, right? I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping in 18 months. I can handle the hard questions from our own citizens, whether the people in this room or a Democratic plant who shows up or mainstream media or whoever else. That's my responsibility. And if you don't have a commander-in-chief who can actually handle that, then they shouldn't be your commander-in-chief. That's my answer. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We'll go right there.
Thank you. We have so many big problems. It's overwhelming
Yes.
for most of us. We don't know where to start, what to do. I'm really worried about something that we don't talk about very much, but could be the end of everything as we know it, and that is EMP.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, actually.
Can you
I probably should have brought it up earlier myself when I talked about defending our own homeland. Just by show of hands, does anyone in this room have an idea of what's your name?
Annie.
What Annie just mentioned? Good. Good. The fact that even a number of you raised your hands gives me some confidence because it's our lives that are at stake. So we're more vulnerable right now to cyber attacks and super EMP, electromagnetic pulse attacks, than we've ever been. Yet the likes of, Lindsey Graham and the Republican Party talking about, hey, let's just go bomb Iran out of existence. Well, Iran's nuclear weapons can't reach the United States, but their super EMP capabilities can. So that refers to effectively sending a pulse wave, and this is vulnerable, we're vulnerable to this right now as we speak, that could take out our electric grid in this country. If that happens in an instant, it sounds like almost exaggerated, but literally our entire modern economy depends on microchips that depend on the electric grid. Planes would be falling from the sky. Air traffic control's gone. Traffic lights don't work. Refrigerators don't work. And we're talking about primal stuff here. I think in a matter of months, a good portion of people in need of insulin won't be getting it. Couldn't store it in the refrigerator or the freezer. We're talking about a good portion of the United States population facing relatively short-term mortality on the back of that. Now, our government has failed to protect us against these basic national defense measures while we're shipping $200 billion to Ukraine, while we're getting involved in foreign wars, Iraq 2.0, that doesn't advance our interests, more vulnerable than ever here at home. So I have a clear plan to address this. There are 60 Chinese transformers in our own electric grid. We're going to swap those out for American ones, not vulnerable to control. There's good ways of hardening our electric grid such that the spread of a super EMP attack would be far more limited than today, where it could sweep a good portion of the continental United States. And yes, does that take some spending to do? Yes, it does. On the order of maybe about $100 billion. That's a lot of money, but it's tiny compared to a national defense annual budget over the course of 4 years, which is more like $3.6 trillion or more, most of which is going to causes that don't advance our interests. So I will use our own military resources to defend our own homeland. And that's the novel idea in both Republican and Democratic parties. And it's sad to say. And it's going to take an outsider who doesn't make money off of going to war, which I'm sorry to say is the case for many of these politicians, directly or indirectly, doing it from the side. It's going to take somebody from the outside with fresh legs and a deep understanding, first personal understanding, of what's going on to actually be able to see this through. And I'm glad you asked about that, Annie. Thank you. It's a good question. Thank you. We'll go right there. Oh, yeah, this lady, and then we'll go to the, tell me your name.
I know Mexico is a big issue with the border there, but what do you plan on doing with the Canadian border?
Thank you, and I've visited both. Thank you for asking that. I'm getting good questions in this room, because sometimes we're just skating to where the puck is. We got to skate to where the puck is going. We've had more illegal border crossings at the northern border in the last year than the last 12 years combined. And some of the most hardened criminals, not just from Mexico, but from Brazil, a Brazilian ex-military man who had killed 10 people, whereas he found having actually crossed the northern border, captured in New Hampshire. So what are we going to do there? This is where our military makes a difference. We can't build a wall across the full northern border given the terrain. You can build a metaphorical wall using drones and using other technology. So we would use a technological wall, either physical or otherwise, in the northern border, combined with moving our own troops there. We have enough of our own troops to send the signal that's enough to achieve deterrence. That's what I would do at our northern border. And we have to increase the punishments. Right now, I've actually visited the northern border. I don't mean to make light of this, but it's just a true story. So I visited the northern border, north of Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. There's a barbed wire fence in Customs and Border Patrol. You have to go right here. It says, do not enter. You have to get in the line or you're in trouble. You can be arrested. And then right underneath that, there's a sign that says, hiking trail this way. There's a beautiful hiking trail. So I checked it out. It goes basically in and out of Canada, back and forth across the United States, wide open. You come right straight across. You cross one stream within New Hampshire to get to the rest of the state. I decided to try it myself. Wasn't that difficult. About yay high. It was a little cold, but not unbearable. And that's how many people are coming into this country. Enough fentanyl crossed the northern border to kill 3 million Americans. That was just the amount captured illegally at the northern border last year. So the combination of using technology and the construction of a wall where the terrain allows for it, while also moving our own military to the northern border, seals that issue. But right now, it's the lack of will. It's not the technological challenge. It's the lack of political will. And it's going to take a president who understands it and is committed to it to address it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hi, Vivek. I have a question for you. But first of all, I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you.
For what you and your family are doing. I think it's really, the word behind it says it all. So
Thank you.
You're opening a lot of people's eyes. And I love the way you shut down the media.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Speak the truth.
My question, though, is just this week we had a terrible tragedy here in our state.
Yes.
With the school shooting. And I wanted you to say a few words about that. What do you think? Is it a mental health crisis? Is it what's going on? What should we do about it?
I'd be happy to. It was a heavy moment. I mean, feels like days ago. I suppose this was yesterday morning. I was in Perry when it happened, actually. We had an event about 5 minutes away from the shooting, and we were there. I only heard about it literally as we're pulling up. We see ambulances, we see police cars, we see helicopters. We know something's happening. They said, do you want to cancel the event? I said, we're going to have it. And if nobody shows up, we'll just say a prayer there and leave. Actually, it turns out people came from the community. One man who came, this relates to the answer to your question. He's a father. He had just picked his daughter up at the elementary school after he heard about it. The elementary school is right there next to the high school. He and his wife picked up their daughter. And he said, I wasn't going to come to this. I knew this was happening, but actually decided to come now just because he wanted to talk about it. People are so siloed today. And that was probably one of the most meaningful events we had. We people the permission to say whatever needed to be said, and let's just say it was a tearful event in that community. I'll tell you what struck me. The first two people who spoke were both people who lived in Perry. One of them was a young man who had just gone to Perry High School. And both of them independently said the same thing. I was struck by it. When one person says something, it lands. If two people say the same thing at the same time, then you say, okay, I need to pay attention to this. He said, we're not shocked that this happened. And that was the part that really saddened me. Because of this mental health epidemic in our country. Apparently there was a kid, and I can't verify this, but this is what the kid who went to the school said, had been making bomb threats for years. Now, this is years ago, not the same person who was the perpetrator here, but nothing, as a matter of procedure, nothing is done. The same person just comes back. There was a woman who came in yesterday from Connecticut. She's actually a longtime older friend of ours that just joined us on the campaign trail, said in their school district where they had lobbied for having armed security guards in the schools, it had actually gotten shut down because 2% of the kids and parents said they would find that to be a microaggression in their community, in that city. And so what's going on? In the very short run, I think it's unconscionable that we should have another shooting in this country, school shooting in this country again. And we know how to stop that. 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. 1 alone doesn't do it. 3 does get the job done. We have more security at our banks or at our airports or at many shopping malls than we do at our own schools. That's unconscionable. And I think the fact that the objections to this come from the left in some ways show what's happening. I think they're actually, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say this, in some ways using our kids as hostages as a way of implementing their long-standing anti-Second Amendment agenda. Right? Because using each of these as an instance to achieve what they otherwise couldn't without the tragedy, when we know how to prevent that tragedy in our schools, it's by 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. So I think that's shameful and we shouldn't fall for that. But the second thing is deeper. It is that mental health epidemic. We have to bring back those psychiatric institutions in this country. We shuttered them over 40 years, and part of the reason why, the dirty little secret, the underbelly of this, is it's in part because of pharmaceutical industry lobbying. Because it was inconvenient for the pharma companies that many of the potential people who would take those prescription antipsychotics were trapped up in places where they weren't getting pharmaceutical care. So I would bring back the psychiatric institutions. I'd put armed security guards in schools. And then part of the job of the next U.S. president is even deeper than that. It's to revive our national character. Young people are so hungry for a cause right now, starved for purpose and meaning and identity at a time in our history when faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. And half the job of the next president is to revive our national character, answer who we are. We're all hungry to be part of something bigger than ourselves, yet we can't even answer what it means to be an American. That's how we dilute the poison to irrelevance. And do you think it's a coincidence that we see the rise of wokeism and transgenderism and climatism and COVIDism at the same time that we see the rise of depression and anxiety and fentanyl and suicide? It's not a coincidence. These are symptoms of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in this country, a moral void. And it's when you have a vacuum that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. And so I think that's half the job of the next U.S. president, too. The last president who gave this to us was actually Ronald Reagan. When he left office in January of 1989, that's what he said he was most proud of. Not bringing us to the near end of the Cold War, not growing the economy, all great achievements. He said he was proud to revive a national character that we lacked when he first took office in 81. That's what Reagan says. That's what I want to tell you when I leave office in January 2033. Sure, we shut down the deep state. I think I'm best suited to get that done. We secured the border, stayed out of World War III, declared independence from China, all of it. But the thing I most want to tell you is that our next generation, my kids and their generation, that they are once again proud of themselves, proud to be citizens of this nation. Our policies are in some ways worsening this. We're paying people more money to stay at home instead of to go to work in the name of helping them. Well, first of all, that's holding our economy back, but you think it's actually helping them? People lose their self-confidence that way. Sitting in your parents' basement, smoking pot, playing video games. You think that's helping your self-confidence or driving more depression and anxiety? The very policies in the name of helping people are hurting them. Speaking of the south side of Chicago, we're paying single mothers more money not to have a married man in the house than to have a married man in the house. 25% of kids now born into a fatherless household. That's unconscionable. Our own policies are paying for it. That's much higher than it was 50 or 60 years ago before Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, which is the biggest misnomer of policy in American history. It's not helping anybody. 45% of black kids today are born into single-parent households. It was a fraction of that in the 1950s. And if you're actually born in a single-parent household, you're 8 times more likely to end up in prison, 10 times more likely not to graduate from high school or to end up in poverty. And if you look at most of these mass shootings, I don't know about the perpetrator in this case, because it's too soon afterwards, but many of them, if not most of them, grew up in single-parent households. So I think that we know how to address these problems. Do we have the courage and spine to actually do it, or are we just going to do the thing that is the usual motions, the circus you're supposed to go through? Pretend to pass some sort of Second Amendment infringement, some sort of red flag law, call it a day, and pretend you did something? Or do you actually want to get to the root cause? I prefer to get to the root cause, and I'd rather, as I said, speak the truth and lose an election than to win by playing some fake game. But I do think that's what our country needs if we want to address what happened in Perry, and to make sure, God forbid, that happens anywhere else again, we'll make sure it doesn't. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the question. Thank you. Ma'am?
I agree with everything you're saying.
Thank you.
I'm not good at speaking in front of people, but I love your faith. And,
Thank you.
That's what's going to save America, is faith in God. And that's why we have everything going on that we have now, is because people have lost their faith.
Yes.
They don't go to church. They don't read their Bibles. They don't raise their kids in a godly way. And this is why America is the way it is. The Bible was taken out of schools, and you can see the trajectory. Everything's gone. Kids are taught they're animals. They act like them, and then people are surprised.
Well, I mean, I want people to understand that's not an exaggeration. That's happening in our schools today as we speak. And so thank you for sharing that. Are you a parent yourself?
I am not.
You're
I
not.
have nieces and nephews.
It's sad
It's
what we see in our
very sad
schools.
what we're seeing. It's very sad. And in homes.
And in homes. See, education does begin with the family.
That's right.
The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It's the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Every great country, every actual great society, was built on the backbone of a strong nuclear family, this one included. People ask me, did you grow up in privilege? Before I used to say, well, my parents we didn't grow up in money, and my dad faced layoffs at GE, and all that's true. But actually, I did grow up in privilege. I had the ultimate privilege of 2 parents in the house with a focus on education and instilling in us a belief in God. And I want everyone here to know this about us. Perhaps you know this as well. I'm Hindu, is my background, actually. Not slightly different than the traditional faith background of people who have been U.S. president. Thomas Jefferson was actually a deist, not a traditional Christian, but most have been traditional Christians. But we share the Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on. And I think we've been taught to apologize for that. I mean, the heart of my faith is that God teaches us that God's one true God. He puts us here for a purpose. It's our duty to realize that purpose. But we're equal because we're equal in the eyes of God. That's where our equality comes from. My parents gave us a pretty traditional upbringing. I would say a very traditional upbringing. Family's the foundation. Marriage is sacred. They taught us it's between a man and a woman. That the good things in life involve a sacrifice. That divorce isn't some option. You pick off a menu when things go a little wrong from time to time. Honor your parents. Adultery is wrong. Abstinence before marriage is the way to go. It's not just about this life. It's about the eternal life. Those may sound like antiquated values today. I got to St. Xavier High School, where I went to Christian school in Cincinnati, where I grew up. We read the 10 Commandments. I read them for the first time at the age of 14. What do they say? There's one true God. Don't take his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. Don't lie. Don't kill. That's where my pro-life views come from. Don't kill. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't covet. It didn't feel to me like I was reading these values for the first time. They are the values that our nation was founded on. Our Constitution was made, as John Adams said, for a moral people. And so, yes, I think we need a president, especially who can reach that next generation. I'm not purporting to be the pastor. I don't think that's the job of the president. But part of the job of the president is to swear an oath to the Constitution and to keep it so every pastor across this country can do their job in a way that many are stopped from doing today with the assault on religious liberty. And so, yes, I believe God puts us here for a purpose, and every one of us has our own God-given skills. It's our job to use those skills to do what's right now in the short time we're given. And I hope we can set that example. Apurva and I both, the standard I want you to hold us to is both of us, I speak for both of us when I say this, we want you to be able to look your kids in the eye and tell them that I want you to grow up and be like them. She meets that standard every day, I'll tell you that, is saving lives as a surgeon while also standing for what's right, not just raising our kids, but setting an example for kids across this country. And I think it's been a long time since we've held our presidents to that standard. That's what I'm asking you to do. That's a high standard. So we can make faith and family and patriotism and hard work cool again, actually, for the next generation. And I consider that, too, the other half of the job, not just the policy, but reviving that national character and standing for who we are. And I'm grateful to have had that moral education at St. X High School. Why wouldn't I want that for every kid across this country, too? I also think every kid who graduates from high school should be able to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a voting citizen of this country. You don't value a country you just passively inherit. We value a country that we have a stake in building, in creating, in knowing something about. That's how we fill that hole. If you have a hole the size of God in your heart and God doesn't fill it, something else will. It's the truth. It goes to your question, sir. If you don't pledge allegiance to this flag, you'll pledge allegiance to a different flag instead. That's the psychological space that the transgender flag really fills. You don't pledge allegiance to this one, you need to pledge allegiance to something. Might as well be the real thing, and I think that's part of my job to restore as the next president. Hi, good to see you. You want to ask one, and then we'll give you the final word, sir.
To go back to the tragedy from yesterday, it feels like it's a circle and there's no answer to it.
Yeah. They may be able to hear you a little better.
So we've got higher institutions that are cranking out teachers that are woke.
Yes.
Healthcare workers that are woke, and social workers that are all woke.
And military generals that act like they're woke.
And who's helping these children? How do we stop that? Is it possible to get the federal money out of these higher institutions that are only seen to exist for that money?
Answer, yes. Actually, and I mentioned this maybe earlier before you arrived. That's what shutting down the Department of Education is all about, though. Because it ties into a different reason to do the same thing. $80 billion of our money is going to a federal agency that says you don't get that money as a local school or a university unless you adopt those toxic racial and gender ideologies. And it's worth people understanding where the Department of Education came from in the first place. Its original purpose was, after the Civil Rights Acts, to make sure that Southern schools in certain Southern states weren't siphoning money from predominantly black school districts to white ones. That's how it began. But somehow that morphed into saying that you don't get this money unless you're adopting toxic racial and gender ideologies in your schools. That's a lot of where this is coming from. So go to the head of the snake and actually shut it down. In our military, clean house at the Pentagon, where a lot of this poison has begun. At the FBI, I would just say incremental reform, shut it down. Take the 20,000 bureaucrats and send them home. The 15,000 cops on the front lines will move them to the DEA or the U.S. Marshals, which have actually been far more effective at fighting child sex trafficking rings or the fentanyl epidemic. So you have to be willing. It starts with, wokeness begins with bureaucracy, actually. Get in there and shut that bureaucracy down. The rest of it automatically melts away. And then some of this is an actual civil rights violation. And you know what? You have to apply the laws even-handedly. Those are federal laws. Now, I'm of the school, you're not supposed to say this, but it's my belief, and it's my view. I should share it with you if it is. I don't think we need those protected classes at all for race and gender and sexual orientation and religion and national origin. Today, no doubt about it, they're doing more harm than good. They're actually creating more discrimination than actually facilitating it. So I would say get the heck rid of it altogether. But if we're going to have it, you got to apply the laws even-handedly. And what you're seeing right now, forcing people to bend the knee to these ideologies, is a violation of those civil rights statutes. So you can't have it both ways. And so I'll also instruct my Attorney General to actually make sure that anytime you see those civil rights violations where people are bending the knee, they actually are applying that law even-handedly. Do we have time for one more? Okay. You guys are right here. I'll take them together. Yeah, and then we'll hear from you too, sir.
Thanks for your visit. It's been a pleasure watching you handle the media. Interview.
Yeah, well, I try to be as honest as I can.
I at one point wrote you off after I heard that you had ties to a George Soros award.
Which is false.
Right.
Yeah,
and,
it's amazing how that works, right?
Right. I imagine at the same time, too, that you weren't paying attention to who was giving awards out at that time.
Yeah, it happens not even have been George Soros, but I'll tell you, it's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, my question leads into the idea that there is a deep state.
Yes, there is.
Soros is part of that. He's captured our court system.
And Larry Fink, too.
Our judicial
the two of them.
And it leads people to believe there's maybe no hope at this point. How can we get the George Soroses out of our politics and maybe reverse the damage that's been done in the court system?
Yeah. Well, the first is it's also cancer that exists in the Republican Party. And just the people who understand what he's referring to. When I was 24 years old, there was a scholarship I got, not from George Soros, but from some other guy. It was back in 2010, before I even knew who George Soros was at the age of 24. Some other guy, his last name Soros, who's related to him, made some money, has different political views, who's dead. And I took a scholarship that I would take every kid to take. It's a generic one. I've won about 50 scholarships. That was one of them. But politics, and it actually relates to the answer to your question. You know who's been pushing that in an earlier phase of this campaign was one of the super PACs. It's not even the candidate's fault. I don't even blame Ron DeSantis for this. It's his independent super PAC, which itself has imploded under the corruption of its own. For all I know, they shortchanged him too. That's the cancer on American politics. And actually, that's what George Soros uses to control the Democratic Party. So we used to have campaign contribution limits. We effectively, on both sides of the aisle, let those go out the window to say, yeah, we have campaign contribution limits, except if it's a super PAC, you can give unlimited amounts. And in some cases, even anonymously. That's poison. It's corruption. I've said this before, I'll say it again. End the super PACs. And the problem is the Republicans are actually the ones who are addicted to it. So you think that there's a problem with the left. If you actually want to trace the history of this, it's even a little bit more sordid. The left actually used to call for this before 2010, and the Republicans are the ones who opposed it. So then that's when the George Soroses of the world said, okay, well, if you can't beat them at their own game, if you can't actually change the game, beat them at their own game. And that's exactly what happened. So end the super PACs, and then as it results to the let's say, co-conspirator here, it's Larry Fink and the woke industrial complex. The ESG movement is manipulating our money to do through the back door of corporate America what they couldn't get done through the front door. That's actually because that's allowed the deep state, that's the one that gives them government money, to do that with in the first place. Put an end to that as well. Those two things, I have a deeper understanding than most. I've written the book about the ESG, written 2 books about the ESG movement in this country, started the leading anti-ESG competitor, it's a firm called Strive, to compete against BlackRock. So I understand this, but I try to do as much as I could through the private sector. But the reality is the head of the snake is none other than that federal bureaucracy. And the right answer isn't to get in there and reform it. That's what some people will tell you. Can't reform it. It's like an 8-headed hydra. You cut off one of its heads, it grows right back. You have to cut it at its core. Strike it at its core and gut it. Get in there and shut it down. And sometimes there's a risk, am I not cutting enough too much fat, or am I cutting too much that I might cut too much muscle? That's the risk we have to take. I'd rather cut too much that we cut muscle and then bring back whatever we overcut than to not cut enough at all. And that's what we need to do. 75% mass firing as soon as I get there. 8-year term limits for every federal bureaucrat. End the super PACs. No trading of individual stocks if you're in Congress. No becoming a lobbyist if you've worked in the government, either in Congress or in the bureaucracy. No joining the boards of a company if you've been a regulator of that company. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, both do it. Put an end to the corruption. And it takes somebody who isn't bought and paid for by that same system to actually do it. And somebody earlier today encouraged me to tell people how much money you've been putting in this campaign so people know. I don't like to boast about this stuff or whatever, but just we put in tens of millions of dollars, close to $30 million of our own family's hard-earned money into this campaign. And we're going to stop at nothing because I would rather spend our money or be it free than to be somebody else's circus monkey. And the dirtiest little secret is a lot of those people are equally now using Republicans to accomplish their same goals. So that's where this road ends. End the corruption and we get our country back. So we'll give you the very final word before they drag me out of here.
Most important question. So in 2020, Donald Trump garnered, 74 million votes. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, 81 million. I'd be shocked if everybody behind me believes that man got 81 million votes. Huge numbers. How do you...
Are you one of those conspiracy theorists that they think that they also made a man-made pandemic that year?
I am.
So you think it actually began in a lab in Wuhan? You crazy man?
So I've heard. So how do you have a plan, a network in place so that, winning the Republican caucus is the first step, but none of this matters if...
It's true.
If you can't, voter month, it's got to be voter day. Voting day.
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So I'll tell you what I'll deliver after I'm president, and then I'll tell you what the danger is this year. Okay. As your president, I will set minimal federal standards for federal elections. It's a long time and long overdue that we get it done. Single day voting on election day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government issued voter ID to match the voter file, and English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That shouldn't be controversial. That is common sense. And I will deliver that as your next president. You have my word on that. That's a core priority for me, and I've said that all along. Now, we got a chicken and egg problem here. How do we get there? I'm a private civilian right now, just like you all. I'm a businessman. And I think it's going to take an outsider to get this right, but I don't have the control of getting over there other than doing one thing. This has to be a landslide election, as I said earlier. And a landslide minus some shenanigans, and you better believe that's coming, still is a decisive victory. Now I want you to open your eyes to what I think is actually the trap they've laid. Because you have a choice to make. And it matters in about 10 days. If you think this system, the one that gave us a man-made pandemic and a tech-rigged election process all the way leading up to the rigged election itself, if you think that this system is going to let Donald Trump get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, actually. You can open that door. You guys can hear me in the back? Because I want everybody to hear this part. Don't worry about it. If they can hear me, it's fine. It's sad. It doesn't give me pleasure to share this, but it also almost feels like torture if you can see something with clarity and then you're still watching a train wreck happen as you're watching it in real time. It pains me to watch what they're doing. If you think they're going to let Donald Trump get close, this system, they're going to stop at nothing. When I say nothing, I mean nothing to keep this man away from the White House. And they say the reason they'll stop at nothing is they believe they actually have the moral duty to do it. And if you're guided by that, it's like you're a jihadist. You'll stop at nothing to get the job done. And so we can't walk into that trap They want to narrow this down to be a two-horse race. Initially, I thought it was between the Democratic nominee. Increasingly, I'm thinking it's even within the Republican Party. Narrow it down to be a two-horse race, eliminate Trump, take him out from contention one way or another, and then trot in the puppet they can control. That's what I believe it is, actually. It's becoming increasingly evident to me. So do not fall for that trap. We can't afford as a country to fall for that trick, because our America First movement, it is bigger than one man. We love Donald Trump because he got this fight started, but it is our job to finish it. We owe it to our founding fathers. This movement did not begin in 2016. It began in 1776. And we owe it to this country and to our founding fathers to make sure that we have another 250 years and then some still left. He rolled over that log and we saw what crawled out. I am bringing the pesticide, okay? That's what it's going to take. An understanding of the Constitution to quickly get in there, mass firings right out the gate. This is going to take somebody who understands the Constitution. Trump brought the brawl, and I bring that too. We're going to break things, but you got to be also grounded by the Constitution, or they will dupe you. They will eat you alive. You strike that swamp, it's struck right back. We cannot fall for that trap. You got the future of America First standing right here. It is going to take somebody who is not yet wounded in that war to lead us to victory in this war. And yes, we are in a war. You got to know you're in a war to win one. It's not a war between black and white or even Democrat or Republican. It's a war between those of us who love this country and our founding ideals and this fringe minority who hates this country and everything we stand for. Between the permanent state and the everyday citizen. We need a commander-in-chief at long last to lead us to victory. That is why I'm in this race, and I'm asking you to do the right thing. Even those of you who a few months ago may have thought, as I would have if I weren't running, to go in a different direction. Respect the heck out of Trump. But this is about the country, the future existence of the country, and I'm asking you now to do the right thing for our America First movement. It doesn't belong to Trump and it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the citizens of this country. You know, George Washington, if he were here, what would he say right now? I think he would tell us, you don't have to be this nation in decline. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. I think he would tell us that as a nation right now, we are really still a little young, actually. Going through our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. That you do have another 250 years left, but you're going to have to step up just as we did in 1776 to make it so, because it's not going to happen automatically. We live in a 1776 moment. These revolutions, they're led by the next generation for a reason. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still ahead, and I don't take that for granted. But I hope they are. Somebody whose best days in life are still yet ahead to see a country whose best days are still ahead of itself. And so, yes, if you all do your part, and that's what I'm asking you for today, if you do your part, I promise you, Apurva and I and our family, we will do ours to make sure that this is still the country where we will look our kids in the eye and tell them that you do get ahead in the United States with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication. And that you know what? You are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what I am here to lead us to. And with your help, that is what we're going to revive to save this great country. Thank you for coming today, guys. God bless you and your families. And may God bless our United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's good meeting you. How old are you?
I just turned 20. A man we can
Thank
trust
you
in a
guys are old enough to
revolution we
be in
want you
this
to be a
thing.
part of.
You
Please
too?
sign up with
Thank
one of
you.
our staff
Thank you,
members
guys. I
before you
appreciate
head out to be a precinct captain or
Appreciate you being
volunteer
here.
for us
Is
in these
this
final
your-
10
is
days.
your daughter? Thank you. Thank you for coming.
He's got another event if you didn't
Thank
get
you.
your
I
question
appreciate it.
answered.
Thank you, man.
Down
What's your
in
name?
Jackson
John.
County,
John, well said, man.
the
Thank
Timber
you.
Lane. So
Spread
feel
the
free to
message
follow
for us.
us
All right,
there.
we're going to
if
do
you
this.
would
Spread the
like to
message.
keep
We're going to do
joining
this.
us today. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Remember to grab your friends.
Good to
and
see you,
go
brother.
to
Thank you.
caucus
I appreciate the
Saturday,
candor.
15.
I appreciate the candor. The trickery, it's amazing. But thank you for thinking independently.
You've been saying the right stuff.
Yeah, don't swallow what they force feed you.
Right.
We can't afford to fall for their traps. What's your name?
Bo Scott.
It's good to see you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
What's your name, brother?
Stuart.
Stuart, thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Thanks, guys. We're going to do this.
Mind getting a picture?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, come on up. Do we have time? Todd, do we have time for pictures, or are we late for the next one? 10 minutes? Okay, good. We get to. You can tell people we can do a photo line. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You been invited on Joe Rogan yet?
So please have your phones out.
You know, it's
Been
funny.
Get a photo.
He talks about me a lot, but I haven't gone on.
So please have it out.
We usually
expecting it.
just go to the ones where they call us.
Yeah.
But maybe at some point I should call him up. I
Jordan
don't know.
Peterson got you on?
Yeah. He actually emailed me today. I think I'm going to go back again with him.
Awesome.
He's a good dude.
Awesome.
He's a smart guy. I like Joe. He's not like a Republican in any stretch. He's just a patriot,
Yeah.
and he loves his country.
He's just
He
being
speaks the
red-pilled.
truth. Yeah, slowly.
Yeah.
We're happening,
Yes,
watching
Mike,
it in
yes.
real time. Exactly.
Yep.
Good seeing you,
Hey,
Bo.
good luck.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Spread the
appreciate
message
it.
for us. All right, we're going to
I
do
will.
this. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. What's your name?
Stuart.
Stuart.
I was wondering if you could sign
Thank you, Stuart.
sign
Yep,
this for me?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be with you on
Thank you, Stuart.
next week. Thank
Thank you, man. Spread the message, too, and get those people out. Thank you. Good to see you, man. Thank you.
Very good.
I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Patrick could take the pictures, maybe even. He can take the pictures.
Oh,
Yeah, you can do the cards. Thank you, man.
Yep. Very good.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thank you. It's good to see you. What's your name?
Margie.
Margie, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. The camera?
Yep.
No, thank you. I can
If
take it. Whatever's
God
good.
forbid-
Yeah.
If God forbid this isn't your time, will you stick around? Will you
I'm
be
not
here
going
for us next
anywhere.
time?
I'm worried that I can't say the same about our country. I don't think we have. I mean, that works for me. I don't know if it works for our country.
Yeah.
And so
We need you.
it's not about us. It's about the country. And so that's why
Thank
so it
you.
gives us our urgency. Thanks a lot. You have kids?
Kids and grandkids.
Kids and grandkids they're here though.
No, North Carolina.
Okay. I was going to say bring them to the caucus too because we want to get that next generation. But tell them
Yeah.
we've got their back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. I
It's good to see
believe
you.
in everything that you're talking about.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The whole deep state thing is needs some
It's the reality.
bureaucrats or
That's the reality. Thank you. Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Spread. We're gonna get. If there's one thing we get done, it's shutting down that deep state. So thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's good to see you, man.
Hey,
I feel like we've met before. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Are you going to be at Cedar Rapids this weekend?
Yes, I believe we are. Yeah. It's good to see you. Thank you. Spread the message. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's good to see you. What's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea.
My
Good to see
son
you.
Kobe.
Oh, good.
He got cut off apparently. There he is.
Oh, there he is. Okay, thanks. A little tight room in here. Thank you, man. Which doctor? How you doing, brother? I like that.
Thank
Spread
you.
the message. And have you done the Iowa caucus before?
No, but I'm going to.
Okay, we'll bring as many people as
Yes.
you can, and I think that's exactly why we're going to deliver a shock. It's a lot of the first time coming
Thank
out. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm going to do it again. Your
Yeah,
eyes
Bo.
are closed on it.
Oh,
I
sorry,
didn't
man.
wanna
Sorry,
embarrass
dude.
you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it, brother. Take it easy. Take it easy. Thank you.
I'll have him follow back up with you.
Who's that? What's going on, man? What's your name?
Jaron Hartbeck.
How you doing? How old are you?
I'm only 17.
17. Well, you can vote. You know,
Yeah, I'm
in
gonna
the
vote
caucus.
next.
In the
Yep.
caucus, yeah. When do you turn 18?
Just in start of June. So.
Oh, you can vote in this caucus. You know that, right?
Yep. And
January
I'm gonna,
15th.
I think I'm probably gonna vote for you.
Thank you, man.
But-
We'd love to have you out there.
Yeah.
You spread the message and bring other young people. That's what we want to do is activate
That's
your
actually
generation.
what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying
That'd
to
be
get
awesome.
one of my friends to not vote for Nikki Haley.
Thank you. Bring him out, and you sign one of the cards. We'll tell you where to go. Make it easy for you and your friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this your son?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle. Thank you for being here. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks.
You get a picture?
No.
Okay, hey, exactly. That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. Good seeing you. Thank
Good
you.
seeing you again.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coconut, right? That's very good.
Yeah, McCoken is a good place. We really enjoy being there. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, man. You live around here?
No, I drove 4 hours from Wisconsin.
Oh, thanks for being here, brother.
Could you sign that one over you down here?
I may not meet you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
And then could you sign this one up here in black?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, brother.
Yeah, I'll get one of you.
Thank you, man. Come on in. Yep.
All right, sir. V for Vivek, right?
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Spread the message, and
I will.
I think we're going to do this.
I think so too. I feel real good
with
about
your
it.
help, we're going to make it happen. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
Have